So I'm Chuck Newberg, I'm professor of mathematics, and this talk was kind of inspired by my syllabus a little bit, because in my syllabus I have a paragraph about don't Google the answers, don't use Chegg, don't use photomath, don't use this, because none of them really help you develop problem-solving skills. So along the way I noticed Brian here, Brian Olson, by the way, a student of mine, was using ChatGPT, but he wasn't using it the way he was using it was developing problem-solving skills. And so I thought he was using it what I would say a productive manner. So then I asked Brian, hey, would you be willing to share how you use ChatGPT? And hopefully this isn't breaking fruit, but I can tell you he was successful last semester in Algebra Trig, and right now he's in the Calculus 1. He's moved up that next level, and he still uses it in what I consider a productive manner. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Brian Olson here, a Western WWC student. So.
All right, like Chuck said, I use ChatGPT. It's an AI. There's quite a few different AIs out right now that you can use on different platforms, but ChatGPT is the one I got familiar with, so that's the one I like to use. It doesn't have an app, so if you go to the Play Store or your Apple Store, don't download an app for ChatGPT. You can just go to Google and find where it says OpenAI. That's the right one you want to be at. You do have to sign up for an account. It's pretty easy to do. You just need like your email, birth date. I guess I probably should have already logged in, but it has moved on quite a bit from where it was even last semester. These three options you have in the beginning, if you want to create an image through AI, you can get images made. You can integrate APIs if you're doing some type of a program for that. Otherwise, just select this first one. Like Chuck said, there's different platforms you can use that you can pay for, like a Chegg or Quizlet on the advanced level, but really not necessary to pay for it. This is a free platform. Like I said, it's still learning as it goes, just like with the early internet. This is a search I've already done. Off to the left hand side you can see I've got my files saved, and I'll just kind of cycle through those. I just asked it right here to kind of start it off about early search engines, which most people in here probably aren't familiar with. You would utilize plus symbols and minus symbols to refine your search. Plus symbols for what you really wanted to find, minus symbol to leave it out. That's kind of the same way with ChatGPT. You have to be very specific for what you want. The more specific and the more information you provide, the more information you'll get back. So I kind of asked it, what are the best ways to communicate with ChatGPT and a student to get the best answers? And it provides all of the information right here. Like I said, start with a very specific question, specific output for what you want. Mathematical notation, we'll get into that on the next slide. Chuck kind of covered some of that with the computer or the calculators last time with the caret symbol for your power, typing SQRT for the square root. Desmos is the same way. If you want the square root, you type in SQRT. Break down the complex problems. If it's a very long problem and you're just having troubles with a certain part, just provide that part. Context, ask questions. It might sound kind of weird at first, but it's an AI and you can talk to it and it will talk back to you. And then this kind of just gets repetitive after a while, asking questions. And this last one though, respect the limitations. AI is not what Hollywood makes it out to be, where it knows everything already. It's still learning everything as it goes. So don't expect to just be able to pop in any equation and get the accurate answer. You do have to go through the steps and make sure it's doing it the right way, or your answer will be wrong and you won't really learn anything from it. So here I was asking it, what are the best ways to type out the symbols so that ChatGPT will understand what you're asking? Basic symbols, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. I think everybody kind of knows those keys on your keyboard or your calculator. Again, the exponent, you'll use the caret symbol to get your exponent up there. If you're doing anything with subscript, fractions, and this does get a little bit confusing when you see something like this. I'll cover that in just a second, so don't get worried about that. But you can also use Greek letters. You can do very complex equations. Obviously, try to separate stuff with brackets and parentheses. And then it started to give me this type right here, which is known as LaTeX, which is used for like technical writing. It's a type of TypeScript. So I told ChatGPT most people are not going to want to do a LaTeX notation for general math homework, and then it broke it down a little bit better right here. So like I said, square root SQRT, and it'll pop up the symbol. Powers, you use, the caret symbol, slash for the division or a fraction. If you do fractions, include parentheses just so that you separate it. And then basically, if you're in, calc, for example, when we were doing limits, I wasn't sure how to type out the limit as x approaches 0, so I just asked it. It told me. And then you can communicate better with it through that. If you want to use pi or a symbol, you can ask it for the symbol if you want to copy-paste that into your equations, or you can just type out pi for pi. And the better you communicate and wrap things up for ChatGPT, the better it can break it apart. So here's an example. If you had x squared plus 8x plus 4 and you want to use the quadratic formula, how would you type that into ChatGPT? So -8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then you just type in your numbers per your equation, and it gives you back pretty good response. It labels off, A is 1, B is 8, C is 4. So if you're having a hard time understanding where does A, B, and C come from and plug into, ChatGPT can kind of explain that for you, break it down a little bit better, gives you the equation. Sometimes it does this little box right here where it's more of a code, and you can see right here it says copy code. ChatGPT is kind of helpful for computer coding. It's a little rough on that still, but like I said, it's learning as it goes, and sometimes it just types out the text for you without it being in the code box. But if you needed to copy code, or if you wanted to copy the entire conversation, you can just come up to this clipboard right here, copy the whole thing. And then it just kind of works the problem for you, shows you the steps. If you ever get stuck on a step, you can come back and say, hey, I'm not really sure where you got 64 minus 16 if you didn't understand this process up here. And it can come back through and work it out farther for you. And then it gets all the way down to the end, tells you the plus and the minus of the square roots there. And it's pretty handy for stuff like that. This is just kind of the same example. I wanted to show it again without the code boxes and how it can just kind of type that script for you, so that this right here is probably what most of you would have on your homework or your paper, and gives you a little bit more clear visualization where the actual division happens. And then again, it just breaks it down for you step by step. And like I said, if you wanted to come back through and ask it specific questions for it, you can do so. In this equation, it ended with the end over 1. So I just asked it, like, you can get rid of the 1 because it's just division by 1, and it says, of course. So if you ever have a question for it, like I said, just ask it, like, why did you leave that over 1? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Just ask it why, and it will explain. And then this is kind of the part, like Chuck was saying, where you can use it to study. So I told it, I'm studying for a test. Can you give me 5 examples where I can factor and 5 examples where I need to use the quadratic formula to solve? Let it know, allow me to do the work, and I'll check my answers with you. Otherwise, it sometimes just pops out all 5 examples and then hurry and does the work for you, and you don't really get the chance to do the work by yourself. So you have to specify, like, let me do the work, I'll check my answer back with you. So here's 5 different problems. One of the biggest issues I run into when I'm studying for tests or quizzes, you have homework assigned to you, but the book only has so many problems that you can work, and only so many answers in the back of the book to check your work against. Once you do your homework, you might not have as many problems to go over again. So this will give you extra problems to work out yourself. And then I just picked one. I picked the one with number 17 in it because that's Chuck's favorite number. Went ahead and asked it, you know, is the answer for this one 4 plus or minus 1i? Which hopefully you don't have to do a whole lot with imaginary numbers, but that was just kind of the one I picked. And again, it works out all the steps for you. Gets all the way down to the bottom and says, yep, it is 4 plus I. And again, I was just wanting to verify, why would it not be 1i? Obviously 1 times I is just I, and it goes on to explain that. And like I said, it just wants to get to the simplified answer. Usually ChatGPT is going to bring out like the biggest formula it knows how to use to solve it as fast as it can. So like when we were doing limits, we didn't have the derivative yet. Every time I asked it for help with the limit, it wanted to jump right to the derivative for obvious reasons, because that's so much easier. But I had to keep telling it, like, I can't do that yet. Like, I have to do either the definition of the derivative or lower. So like I said, just communicate with it. And that might sound odd for some people to think like you're trying to have a conversation with artificial intelligence, but I don't know, it's once you get used to it, it's not that bad. Oh wait, I want to go to this one. So right here, you know, it gives you more advanced notation if you are in calculus or something else for the derivative. It gives you the different typesets, and there's many ways to write out the derivative, and ChatGPT can pretty much effectively communicate all of that to you. And here's an example of what I was just talking about. It said to apply the chain rule to solve this problem. Well, again, we have not covered the chain rule, so I just ask it, is there any other rules I can use? And then it just breaks it down that one step lower to the basic differentiation and gets to the end that way. Any questions? I tend to talk very fast when I'm nervous, and that's kind of all I had prepared. So I did want to show some examples. It's a very fast platform. When you ask the question, it usually gives you the answer like in live time. It types it out very fast. It doesn't take very long for it to plug all the numbers in. Kind of just takes off on you. And like I said, it's a good idea to go through the steps along the way. I have no idea if that's the right answer, but obviously you would be just doing your homework or studying for a test. You would have worked out the problem, hopefully, and then asked it to verify your work back to you. It's also very handy for more than just math. I know this is, you know, the Mac, so focusing on math, but you can use it for just about anything you want to ask it a question to.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, how does it do generating problems? Are they comparable to what I asked, or are they more challenging, or
All of the above, because sometimes it gives very basic ones that you're kind of like, hey, that was a little too easy. And then it has ones that are right about the level where you'll know what your teacher is requiring of you. And then sometimes it gives ones that you're just like, hey man, there's no way I know what you're asking me here. And if you let it know, hey, that last one's too advanced, give me a different one. It will give you a different equation. Like I said, you just have to let it know what you want out of it. Because if you don't specify what you want, it'll just give you what it decides. And it might be something very advanced and you're not really sure which way to start or how to go. So just the more you tell it what you want, the more you'll get out of the responses.
So how long have you been using ChatGPT? Is this the start of it, or did you start somewhere else?
Just last semester.
Last semester?
Yep. Yeah, being a non-traditional student like myself, you know, I have a full-time job. I work 48 to 60 hours a week, full-time student. I don't have a whole lot of time for stopping here all the time. I usually work, last semester I worked 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. I don't know if there's any teachers in here that would want me to call them at 3 in the morning for help with any of my homework. I don't see any hands going up, so you get kind of limited on your options at that point. You can go to Google and try and search for the answer. Most teachers who have helped me in here know that my biggest question is always why? Why is it that way? And Google sometimes will help you, but you have to read through different articles, or you go to YouTube, and good luck trying to find a YouTube video of your specific problem without watching 30 minutes of multiple videos to try and piece together what you're trying to ask. So like with ChatGPT, you can get a very specific answer relatively fast. You know, like I said, there is limitations to it, so you always want to make sure it's doing it the correct way, or the way that your teacher asked. I've had some other teachers in here comment that students got the right answer on the quiz, but they got the right answer through a formula that the teacher had not yet taught. So obviously people are going to do what they feel they need to do to pass a class. That's really not what I use ChatGPT for, and I would encourage you guys to not use it that way, but you're going to do what you're going to do. So any other questions? Like I said, I talk really fast when I'm nervous, so I thought I had a lot more to cover than I did. Like I said, just try and utilize it to your best ability. The more you ask it, the more you'll get out of it. The more you ask it, the more it learns. Yes?
How do you make it simplified so you can understand? Because I know sometimes, because I've used ChatGPT before to try to explain things to me, but I can never understand it. It's always like scientific, like actual language and stuff. So how do you just ask it to try to dumb it down for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So like right here, it said to calculate the discriminant right here. So if you weren't sure what that meant, now, you can word that part however you like. I usually go with explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old so that it will like really knock down the language it uses. You can ask it. Sometimes it will, don't be too hard on yourself with ChatGPT because sometimes it won't answer you. So like I said, you just kind of ask it to break down that one specific part that you're having trouble with. So I don't know how well of a job this did. Like I said, it explains it like a puzzle. So if that helps you understand a little bit better, and then it can go through and explain the steps on the discriminant to figure out, you know, what your numbers are, and it explains right here, again, like A, B, and C are these. If you have another issue inside of this step, you could even ask it again, you know, I'm not sure where you ended up with 18 squared minus 4 times 1 times 345. And it will kind of go back to that step and then break down that step a little bit more. So the more you ask it to say, you know, I'm not sure what you mean by this, or, you know, I'm having a hard time understanding this part specifically, it can come back through and give you more clarification.
Brian, does it do it in other languages? Like some of our students, English is their second language. Is there Spanish or French or? Oh my gosh.
It does.
Spanish. Thank you, Brian.
Yep, thank you.
So I guess if it understands Spanish, does it understand any other language?
I would think so.
Like French or
I haven't tried the others, but
I don't know, I might be totally on the side. I don't know my life.
I would imagine it's got just about every language programmed into it.
Ask it to write Egyptian.
Oh.
Not the hieroglyphics.
It doesn't understand Egyptian. We have
Yeah, like I said, it still has limitations for sure.
All right. We have any more questions for Brian? Any more questions? How about running?